The attorney representing Frank Fritz, a former member of American Pickers, has requested that he be compensated for his assistance in the lawsuit in excess of $2,000. After suffering a devastating stroke on July 14, 2022, which left his decision-making skills so impaired, Frank, who was 59 years old at the time, was placed under a conservatorship. It is possible for the United States Sun to publish in an exclusive manner that Nate League, the attorney who represents Frank as his conservator and guardian, has demanded $2,030 for his legal services. Calls to the telephone, appearances in court, drafting of court papers, conferences, and other services are all included in his offerings. This motion was granted by the judge in Iowa, who was presiding over the case, and the judge ordered the guardian and conservator to pay the fees. A motion to approve attorney fees was submitted by Frank's attorney in the month of February. The conservator, which is Midwest-owned bank, was asked to pay fees of $1,200 through the request made by Frank's attorney, who was assigned to represent him by the court. In the letter submitted to the court, it is stated that the undersigned respectfully requests the court to approve the reasonable attorney fees in the above matter and grant authority to the court-appointed conservator to pay out such fees. There are a variety of fees, such as $450 for 2 visits to Frank in the hospital, $120 for his presence at the guardianship hearing in September 2022, $150 for reviewing court files, and more. The judge who was presiding over the case granted the request. As of the 18th of August, Frank's friends submitted an urgent request for the appointment of a temporary guardian and conservator for the celebrity. The following is an excerpt from the records that were obtained by the United States Sun. Mr. Fritz's decision-making capacity is so impaired as a result of his stroke that he is unable to care for his own safety or to provide for necessities such as food, shelter, clothing, or medical care, without which he may suffer from a physical injury or illness. According to the statement, Mr. Fritz's decision-making capacity is so impaired that he is unable to make, communicate, or carry out important decisions concerning his own financial affairs. In the court documents, there was a reference to an exhibit that was provided by a physician, which confirmed that Frank does not have decisional capacity. The following additional information was included in the legal documents. Decisions must be made for Mr. Fritz's care and placement while he continues to recover and receive treatment for his injuries. It is imperative that a guardian and conservator be appointed in order to prevent any immediate harm from occurring to him. The person who submitted the petition asked for Frank's guardian to be a different longtime friend of his who has been assisting him in decision-making since the stroke. MONEISIMPORT, and in order to manage Frank's financial matters, Midwest-owned bank has been appointed as the conservator. The court gave its blessing to both the legal guardian and the conservator respectively. Initial plan documents were submitted by Midwest-owned bank, which disclosed Frank's monthly expenditures. The monthly expenses that Frank incurs amount to $28,292, with $22,832 of that amount being spent on in-home health care. The star will have to pay a total of $273,984 each year for their medical care alone. According to the documents filed with the court, assets will be invested in order to begin generating income for Mr. Fritz. Despite the fact that the conservator has not yet compiled an inventory of Frank's numerous antiques and valuables, they want to leave them largely exactly as they are now. While Mr. Fritz is still in the process of recuperating, the conservator will collaborate with the guardian to integrate Mr. Fritz into management decisions. It is planned that Frank will have access to a bank account that has a small balance for his personal use. Additionally, the conservator will work to apply for disability income for the protected person should he be eligible, As stated in the report,
Following is an excerpt
the antique
from the
shop
initial
known
plan
as Frank
that was
Fritz
submitted by
Finds
the
is
conservator
located in the
Midwest
state of
Owned
Illinois.
Bank.
Mr. Fritz is a well-known collector and has numerous outbuildings full of valuable collections. It is the intention of the conservator to leave those goods mostly in their current state, with the exception of refilling Mr. Fritz's antique store in Savannah, Illinois, if and when it is required. The conservator has not yet conducted an inventory of those items. According to the conservator, there is optimism that Frank will be able to take part in the selection and price of things, just like he did in the past. After being discharged from the hospital on September 6, Frank checked himself into a rehabilitation center in the state of Iowa. ACTD-WHSTRESS-AFTERSTR-HE. On earlier occasions, the United States Sun stated that 4 calls to 911 were made from the residence, which ultimately led to Frank being brought to the hospital after he was discharged from rehabilitation. It was on November 17 that Frank's caretaker dialed 911 to report that he was having a seizure. The operator was informed by her that he just returned home from inpatient rehabilitation for a stroke. Right now, he is experiencing a full-blown seizure, possibly more than one. The man has been trembling. After that, she spoke with the operator about ways in which she could be of assistance to him as she was being transferred to the medical department. On the 7th of December, another caregiver dialed 911 to report that their blood pressure was elevated. She made the following statement on the call. "I have a stroke victim who is 59 years old and has elevated blood pressure." She could be heard telling Frank, "You have to go because your blood pressure is too high." You could hear Frank groaning in the background as she spoke to him. In response, he said, "Oh." On the 21st of December, another caregiver contacted 911 for possible pneumonia. This was the second of 2 calls that were made. Following that, Frank's guardian called the following day. "I'm going to need an ambulance to take someone to the hospital because I think they have pneumonia," he said during the call. "I'm going to need ambulance service. As the protector he suffers from a disability. He is confined to a wheelchair." The firing of Frank. The last time Frank appeared on American Pickers was in an episode that aired in March of 2020. He had taken a break from the show in order to recuperate from back surgery, which resulted in his receiving 185 stitches and 2 rods in his spine. Frank was able to shed 65 pounds while he was away from the show. Furthermore, he disclosed to the United States Sun that he completed 77 days of treatment for alcohol addiction in Iowa. During the interview that took place in 2021 with the United States Sun, Frank disclosed his feud with his co-star Mike Wolfe. According to Frank, "I haven't spoken to Mike in the past 2 years. Despite the fact that he was aware that my back was infected, he did not call me to inquire about how I was doing. But that is the way things are. Everything is stacked in his favor 100% of the time. For the sake of demonstrating how much I can't even bend down that far." Okay, that's all right. The situation is similar to that of Aerosmith, with Steven Tyler serving as the band's frontman. In this case, I've found my place on the show. I'm currently in 2nd place, just behind him. I don't have a problem with it, but it's possible that he does have a problem. In fact, he went so far as to state, "I believe Mike is trying to get his brother Robbie in there to have me replaced. I am really perplexed as to why he is acting in such a manner toward me." However, Mike, who is 58 years old, has disputed that the celebrities are fighting with each other. Mike Colby, Robbie Colby, and Danielle Colby are the stars of American Pickers.